Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving into the world of AI stocks, specifically.
Okay.
Trying to answer a question we've gotten from quite a few of our listeners.
All right.
SoundHound AI or Nvidia? Which one's a better investment? We're basing this deep dive on an article from The Motley Fool.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
And this is interesting because AI is obviously a very hot topic right now.
Oh, yeah.
PwC predicts AI will be a $15.7 trillion market
Huge.
by 2030. So this is not a small thing we're talking about.
No kidding.
We're talking about a huge potential impact.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's driving so much of the investor interest right now.
For sure. For sure. And you've got two companies here that are both in AI, but they're approaching it from completely different directions.
Yeah.
SoundHound is all about conversational AI, whereas Nvidia makes the chips that are the workhorses of AI data centers.
So two very different pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Let's start with SoundHound.
Yeah.
What exactly is conversational AI? Like, how does that work in the real world?
Well, think about all the times you've maybe gotten frustrated with your smart speaker.
Oh, yeah.
Or struggle to navigate like a clunky automated phone menu.
Right.
SoundHound's technology is all about making our interactions with machines feel more natural or human.
So smoother customer service calls.
Yeah.
Easier to use devices.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are they actually gaining traction in the market? I mean...
They are. They are. One thing that really stood out to me in the Motley Fool article was how they've diversified their customer base.
Oh, interesting.
So, last year, their biggest clients made up 72% of their revenue.
Wow.
Now it's down to just 12%.
That's a huge change.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's a really positive sign for investors because it means they're not overly reliant on any one customer anymore.
That makes sense. Spreading the risk.
Exactly.
But does that translate to actual growth?
It does. Their revenue jumped 89% in Q3.
Wow.
And they're projecting that they'll double their sales by 2025.
So they're really on the move.
Yeah, they're definitely a company to watch.
Well, all right, so SoundHound's doing some interesting things.
Yeah.
Now let's turn to Nvidia.
Okay.
They're not focused on conversations.
Right.
They're focused on the power behind AI.
Exactly. Think of them as the muscle behind the AI boom.
Okay.
Their chips are what's running the vast majority of data centers where all this AI magic is happening.
So they're sort of the brains of the operation.
Yeah, you could say that.
But how do we know if they can actually keep up with demand? Because there's so much hype around AI right now.
That's the big question, right? Well, according to the Motley Fool, their new Blackwell processors are selling faster than they can make them.
Really?
Yeah, so there's a huge appetite for their products right now.
So a potential bottleneck for them?
It could be.
But in a way, a good problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that they're in high demand.
The article also mentioned a potential $500 billion investment in data centers.
Right.
By the Trump administration.
Yeah.
Would that be a boon for Nvidia if it goes through?
Potentially. It would mean a massive increase in demand for data centers and, by extension, for the chips that power them. So Nvidia would definitely be in a good position to capitalize on that.
Yeah. It's starting to sound like Nvidia's printing money. What does their financial picture actually look like?
It's very strong. Their revenue was up 94% last quarter, and their net income jumped 109%.
Wow.
So those are really impressive numbers, especially for investors looking for, strong performance.
So SoundHound's making waves with its conversational AI.
Right.
Nvidia's crushing it on the hardware side.
Yeah.
For our listener who's trying to discover between the two, what does the Motley Fool say?
Well, here's where we get into the details. While SoundHound has a very compelling story and they've got impressive growth, they're not profitable yet.
Okay.
Nvidia, on the other hand, is already very profitable.
So that's a big difference for investors.
Yeah, profitability is a key factor for a lot of people.
And what about their valuations? How do they compare?
So SoundHound's price-to-sales ratio is currently at 74. That's pretty high and suggests that investors are already baking in a lot of future growth potential. Nvidia's forward PE ratio is at 34.
Yeah.
So it's more moderate.
So does that mean the Motley Fool is giving the edge to Nvidia?
Well, they're definitely leaning towards Nvidia. They like their profitability, their strong growth, and their more reasonable valuation.
But it sounds like there's still a lot of variables at play here.
There are. It's important to remember that the Motley Fool's perspective is just one data point.
Right.
There are always risks to consider and other factors to weigh before making any investment decisions.
Okay. So we've got two AI players with different strengths.
Yeah.
A complex market landscape.
Yes.
What are some potential risks or red flags our listeners should be looking out for?
For SoundHound, one concern would be their reliance on a few key partnerships. Even though they've diversified their customer base, losing a major client could still have an impact.
Okay.
They're still in a relatively early stage of growth.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about Nvidia? Any cracks in their armor?
One thing to keep in mind is that the semiconductor industry is very competitive.
Right.
Intel and AMD are formidable competitors.
Yeah.
A new breakthrough from them could really erode Nvidia's dominance.
So even at the top, you can't get complacent.
No, you can't.
Another potential challenge for Nvidia, I would think, is that their industry is cyclical.
Right.
Demand for semiconductors can go up and down.
Yeah.
A global economic downturn could really impact their sales.
Definitely.
Okay, some important things to think about. So let's take a step back for a second. We've got SoundHound, this up-and-comer, focused on making AI more human-like.
Yeah.
And then you've got Nvidia, this established player who's providing the muscle for this AI revolution.
Right.
Both have a lot to offer, but which one makes more sense for our listener?
That's the million-dollar question, and there's no easy answer. I think the first step is to really understand each company's strengths, weaknesses, and potential risks.
So we've got the lay of the land. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think it would be helpful to compare SoundHound and Nvidia head-to-head on some key metrics.
Okay.
Things like revenue growth, profitability, market share.
Right.
That should give our listeners a clearer picture of where each company stands and how they measure up against each other.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that comparison right after this. Okay, we are back and ready to really put these two companies head to head.
Right.
SoundHound AI and Nvidia.
Okay.
We've got the big picture, but let's really zoom in on some of the nitty-gritty.
The details, yeah.
The numbers.
Yeah.
The metrics that can really help our listener decide which company might be a better fit for their investment style.
Makes sense. Comparing companies side by side can really highlight those strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. So first up, revenue growth. We know that both companies are growing really fast.
Yeah.
But how do they compare in terms of actual numbers?
Well, as we mentioned, SoundHound's revenue surged 89% last quarter.
Right.
That's remarkable, especially for a relatively young company.
That's seriously impressive.
Right.
But Nvidia isn't exactly, a slouch when it comes to growth.
Exactly. Their revenue was up 93% in the same period.
Oh, wow.
So in terms of pure revenue growth, Nvidia has a slight edge right now.
Okay. So a close race on the revenue front.
Yeah.
But growth isn't the only thing that matters to investors. Profitability is obviously key.
Absolutely.
And we know that these two companies are in very different places when it comes to actually making money.
Yeah. Nvidia is already highly profitable. Their net income jumped a whopping 109% last quarter.
Wow.
So that's a huge draw for investors who are looking for those consistent returns.
Makes sense. Now, SoundHound isn't profitable yet.
Correct. Right. They're still investing heavily in expanding their market share, developing their technology. So for investors looking for current earnings, Nvidia is the clear winner.
Okay. So we've got growth, we've got profitability.
Yeah.
What about market share? Who's dominating their respective corner of the AI world?
This is where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Nvidia is the undisputed leader in AI chips.
Okay.
They're powering the majority of data centers worldwide. They have a commanding market share.
So the 800-pound gorilla in the AI chip market?
Yeah, pretty much.
What about SoundHound? Where do they stand in the conversational AI space?
It's a more fragmented market. You've got a lot of players competing for a slice of that pie.
Right.
SoundHound is definitely a strong contender. But they're not the only game in town.
So it's more of an uphill battle.
It could be. Yeah.
SoundHound.
Yeah.
All right, so we've covered revenue, profitability, and market share.
Yep.
Anything else we should be comparing here?
I think it's important to look at their future prospects.
Okay.
What are their long-term growth strategies? What challenges are they facing?
Okay. Good point. So let's start with SoundHound.
Okay.
What's their plan for continuing to grow?
Well, their focus on conversational AI is smart.
Okay.
As more businesses adopt AI-powered customer service, voice-enabled devices become even more popular.
Right.
SoundHound is well-positioned to capitalize on that.
But they're not the only company in that space.
Right. Competition is definitely a challenge.
Okay.
They'll need to keep innovating and stay ahead of the curve.
To maintain that growth.
Exactly.
So a lot of potential, but also some hurdles to overcome.
For sure.
What about Nvidia? What does their future look like?
Well, they're already the leader in AI chips.
Yeah.
But they're not resting on their laurels.
Okay.
They're constantly investing in research and development
Right.
to create more powerful, efficient chips
Right.
and stay ahead of the competition.
But they're facing some headwinds as well.
Yeah.
Right.
As we mentioned, that cyclical nature of the semiconductor industry is a risk.
Uh-huh.
Any kind of global economic slowdown could impact demand.
Yeah.
Also, competition in the tech world is fierce.
Right.
New players could emerge, or existing competitors could have some sort of breakthrough.
So you never really know.
You never know.
Okay, so both companies have a bright future, but some potential roadblocks.
Yeah.
Let's bring this back to our listener.
Okay.
Knowing what we know now, what are some key takeaways
Right.
they can use to maybe inform their investment decision?
I think the biggest takeaway is that SoundHound and Nvidia represent very different types of investments.
Okay, I like where this is going. Expand on that.
SoundHound is more of a high-growth, high-risk play.
Okay,
They have enormous potential,
right.
but they're not profitable yet,
Uh-huh.
and their future is still somewhat uncertain.
So for investors who maybe have a higher risk tolerance.
Exactly.
Right.
Nvidia, on the other hand, is a more established, profitable company.
Right.
They're a market leader
Uh-huh.
with a proven track record,
Right.
but their future growth may be more moderate
Okay.
compared to SoundHound's explosive potential.
So maybe a little safer,
Potentially, yeah.
but maybe not as exciting.
Right. It really depends on your individual goals and your risk appetite.
Right. So no easy answers. It's a lot to digest.
Yeah.
Before our listener runs off to check stock prices,
Yeah.
what are some final thoughts or questions they
Okay.
should be pondering?
I think it's important to remember that the AI landscape is constantly evolving.
That's true.
New technologies emerge. The competitive dynamics can shift very quickly.
So don't set it and forget it.
No.
Keep your eyes peeled back
Exactly.
at any new developments
Yeah.
that could impact these companies and the AI market as a whole.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to do your own research.
Right.
Read those industry reports, follow analysts, stay up to date
Right.
on the latest trends.
Stay informed.
Yeah.
Stay curious.
Yeah.
And most importantly, don't invest in anything
Right.
you don't fully understand.
Well said. Now, before we wrap things up,
Okay.
I think there's one more important thing to address.
Right.
The competitive landscape beyond just SoundHound and Nvidia.
Oh, yeah.
They're our focus today, but
Right.
they're not the only players in the AI game.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's easy to kind of get tunnel vision
Yeah.
when you're focused on certain companies. So what are some other companies or trends
Okay.
that our listeners should be aware of? It's easy to get tunnel vision when you're just looking at two companies.
Right. Yeah.
Uh.
It's like looking at a single tree and missing the whole forest.
Exactly. So what else is out there that could impact this whole AI investment landscape?
Well, when you think about AI, it's not just about these individual companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a technological shift
Yeah.
that's impacting pretty much every industry.
Oh,
So you could look at companies that are using AI in really interesting ways
Okay.
within their sectors.
so instead of just trying to pick an AI company,
Right.
our listener could look for businesses that are really integrating AI to kind of gain a competitive edge.
Exactly.
Any examples come to
Oh,
mind?
yeah. Think about healthcare.
Okay.
Companies that are developing AI-powered diagnostic tools
Uh-huh.
or personalized medicine platforms.
So a company using AI to maybe analyze medical images?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And detect diseases earlier than traditional methods.
Exactly. Or in finance.
Go ahead.
Companies using AI to maybe personalize financial advice,
Mm-hmm.
detect fraud, manage risk more effectively.
It's starting to click for me. AI isn't just a sector.
Right.
It's a tool that's reshaping how businesses operate
That's the key insight.
across the board.
And this brings us back to SoundHound or Nvidia.
Okay.
Knowing that AI is kind of permeating so many industries, how does that affect your view of these two companies?
That's a great question. It makes me think about their long-term relevance.
Okay.
If AI is everywhere, will SoundHound and Nvidia be able to maintain their leadership positions?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
For SoundHound, their focus on conversational AI could be a double-edged sword.
Okay.
On one hand, it gives them a specialized niche.
Right.
On the other hand, if conversational AI becomes just commonplace
Right.
and integrated into other platforms, their advantage could diminish.
So they need to keep innovating,
Yes.
expanding their capabilities
Exactly.
to stay ahead of the curve.
Stay ahead of the curve.
What about Nvidia? They seem to be in a really strong position.
Yeah.
But could the rise of these specialized AI chips threaten their dominance?
It's definitely possible. We're already seeing companies developing chips tailored for very specific applications,
Okay.
like self-driving cars or natural language processing.
So instead of one chip fits all,
Right.
we might see a more fragmented market
Exactly.
with specialized chips for different tasks.
And that could create challenges for Nvidia
Right.
if they can't adapt.
Makes sense.
They might need to partner with some of these chip makers or develop their own niche solutions.
Wow. So the AI landscape is even more complex and dynamic than we initially thought?
It is.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so exciting. There's so much innovation.
Right.
The potential is huge.
So for our listener who's trying to navigate all of this
Yeah.
and make a smart investment decision, what's the key takeaway?
I think the most important thing is to approach AI investing with a long-term perspective
Okay.
and an open mind. Don't get caught up in the hype. Don't chase those short-term gains.
Right.
Focus on understanding the technologies,
Okay.
the competitive landscape, the long-term trends that are shaping this industry.
So look beyond the headlines and really do your homework.
Exactly. And remember, diversification is key.
Oh, that's a good point.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Spread your investments across different companies and subsectors within AI to manage that risk
Right, to mitigate risk.
and capture the full potential of this technology.
So SoundHound or Nvidia?
It's not a simple either or.
Right.
It's about understanding your goals, doing your research, and really embracing that dynamic nature of the market.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We explored SoundHound and Nvidia, the
Yeah.
broader AI landscape.
Yep.
Hopefully giving our listeners some things to think about
Yeah.
as they make their investment decisions.
I hope so.
This is just the beginning.
It,
The AI revolution is still unfolding,
it's exciting.
and we're all along for the ride.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Thanks for listening.